60 Minutes can change your life forever. After the success of his bestseller, 60 Minutes of Wisdom, author and pastor Bishop Derek Grier is back with 60 more powerful insights into life, marriage, friendship, and spiritual growth in his new book, Another 60 Minutes of Wisdom. Bishop Grier has specially written each teaching to lift you from good to great, from mediocre to extraordinary. This book will leave you with a passion for success and achievement, filled with inspirational quotes and real-life anecdotes. Another 60 Minutes of Wisdom is the book you need to reach your next level of excellence. Join the thousands who are saying yes to real change. Get your copy of Another 60 Minutes of Wisdom today.
You see, it's one thing to say in church on Sunday, God's got me, God's going to make me. But when you take that to the hospital, when you take that on your job, that's when you really prove it out. And God didn't just have theories in heaven and he was afraid of anyone ever testing it. He was not afraid. He knows what he placed in you, the seeds of righteousness. He knows what he put in you. So he's not afraid of you facing trouble every now and then. He's not afraid of the devil on this planet. Why? Because he got you.
Grace Church, real people, real lives. Grace Church, real lives, real change. Grace Church, real people, real lives, real change. Real people, real lives, real change.
Welcome to Grace for Today. On today's program, Bishop Derek Grier will begin a new teaching series on the book of Job. Over the next few weeks, you will discover several powerful insights from Job's life that will minister to you. Through it all, you will be encouraged to stay strong and remain faithful even through difficult circumstances. Let's join Bishop Grier for today's message, The Job Experience.
Job chapter 1. And at the outset, we're going to go verse by verse and look at the background and what happens later very, very closely, again, in the seed portion of the entire book of Job. It says in verse 1, there was a man in the land of Uz. It goes on to say his name was Job. Then it says, and that man was blameless and upright. Job was as good as it got in his generation. One who feared God. He had a deep respect and love for God. But on top of that respect, he turned away from evil. Meaning his faith was not just in his heart, but it could be seen in his life and in his behavior. And there were born to this man 7 sons. Now, we are familiar now with the Bible. You've been with us for some time, and we know that one of the ultimate signs of God's divine favor was to have a son in the ancient culture here. So, this man is highly favored. He has 7 sons, and then he goes on and says he also has 3 little girls. He was a blessed family man, and he had significant wealth, actually. We're going to read on top of that. Verse 3. He possessed 7,000 sheep. Now, our greatest wealth is really in our relationships and our family, and that's why a family is listed first here. But then it goes on to actually, in our culture, it'd be a little embarrassing for God to do the same thing. This would be like saying how much money is in a person's bank account, etc. He says here, this man, Job, possessed 7,000 sheep. Prosperity at this time was measured by land and by livestock, not currency as later developed. But the scripture, the point that Scripture is making is that this man was very, very, very successful. So that this man was the greatest of all the people in the East. The idea that every wealthy person is somehow evil and wicked is unbiblical. He's a very, very wealthy man. But he was a good man, a solid man. He loved God, had a relationship with the Father. The problem's not having money, but what? Money having you. Verse 4. He says, his sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day. So Job's kids like to party, like some of our kids. And they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with him. They were a tight-knit family. They didn't just pray together, they what? Played together. There was a chemistry in this family. There was a connection and a bond. As a father, I don't want to just see my kids together. I want to see them having fun together. Because people who have fun together tend to stay together in the long run. Do you understand? When our kids enjoy each other's company, when we pass away and off the scene, we know they're going to still visit each other and be in touch because, again, they enjoy each other's company. So we have something of a model family. We have a man with significant wealth. And in verse 5 it says, and when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them. And he would rise early in the morning, and he offered this burnt offering. For Job said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. His kids were fun-loving, and he knew that sometimes they could be just a little bit irreverent. So, he took these extra steps to make sure that their sins were tended to. And it's important that we're honest to ourselves or with ourselves about our kids. And a lot of folks, they get a report from a teacher and they go fight the teacher. No. What you said about my child sounds right, and I'm going to deal with my child. You understand? And we have to be honest about our kids. And he recognized that his kids, again, fun-loving group, good family, but sometimes they push the edges. And he wanted to make sure that if they did, they would be covered. Job did this continually. He was a vigilant father. This was really an incredible family man. He was concerned about the spiritual health of his children. He didn't just bring home the bacon. He cared about the spirituality of his children. And that's really what a good man is. A good man doesn't just bring home a check. A good man cares about the moral and spiritual development of his household. So far, he's a good man. He's wealthy, fun-loving family. Who could ask for more? But in this next verse, we start to see black clouds begin to roll in. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. This is a picture of a Near Eastern king holding court, comparable to our president having a cabinet meeting in the White House. And then it says, and Satan also, meaning he was not part of the cabinet. Please read your Bible correctly. On top of the cabinet, Satan also came in what? Among them. So here you have a picture of the cabinet walking in to the White House. I don't know where it was amongst the stars, but they walked in, but behind them walked in Osama bin Laden. Now, wouldn't you immediately call for security? Security, hey, what's the deal? Surprisingly, no. Let's keep reading. The Lord said to Satan, this bothered me at first. When I read this, I said, God, why didn't you just throw this guy out? But then I realized to the pure, all things are pure. Satan does not endanger God at all. You understand? If he was a threat, maybe he would have dealt with him and responded, but he was no threat at all. God wasn't at all intimidated. I mean, that's almost like a house dog coming and just laying at your feet. It was really no big deal to God. Satan is not God's co-equal. Satan is not on God's level. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't blink. He doesn't start yelling and screaming, panicking, getting a rifle. No big deal at all. In fact, let's listen to what the prophets say, and you're going to understand this a little more deeply. Isaiah 14:14. Listen to what the prophet says about Satan. He says, and by the way, this is a double reference here. He's talking about a king, but he's ideally or really dealing with the spirit behind the king. How are you fallen from heaven, O day star? Now, typically, stars were used to represent kings, and this is where why the King James actually used the word Lucifer here. And so this day star literally is Lucifer. Son of the dawn, how you are cut down to the ground. Now, when the prophet speaks of the devil, look at the terms he uses. You have fallen from heaven. You were once a star, but now where are you? Crawling on the ground. God sees the devil as a pathetic being. He's not a threat to God at all. He might be a threat to you, but not to the Father. Dr. Derek Grier here. I want to thank you, as always, for tuning in week after week to our Grace for Today program. You know, our media outreach has grown from its really humble beginnings on a small local cable station here in Virginia to now reaching millions of homes in hundreds of countries around the globe. I believe God has given us a mandate to expand this outreach. It's the heart of the Father for this message of His grace to reach even more people, real people who need to see the transforming power of God. The good news is that the expansion is possible. It can happen, but it can only happen as we do it together. My Grace for Today partners make it possible for me to go into homes around the world through the power of media and to proclaim the good news. Would you pray and consider becoming a partner with me today? When you do, I'll send a special message to you every month, and immediately I'll send you a copy of my newest book, Another 60 Minutes of Wisdom. More importantly, though, your faithful commitment. Together, we can reach our world and inspire change in the lives of those who need it most. God bless you, and thanks so much for considering being a partner of this work, Grace for Today.
Right now, you can join together with Bishop Derek Grier to bring hope and change throughout the world. Call the number on the screen or go to our website to become a partner and make a difference today.
Back to Job 1 and 7. Now, we just said the Lord doesn't call for the ushers. He doesn't call for the army. In fact, when you read the Bible, there was really no battle in heaven between God and the devil. Jesus said, I saw him fall like lightning from heaven. How many of you know lightning moves pretty quickly? God said, out, out. There was no God straight, oh, I got to work with this devil. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus, Holy Ghost, help me. None of that. He just said, out, and he went, and everyone that followed him. So the Lord is calm and cool, collected, got it together. Satan shows up, and the Lord said to Satan, hey, Stinky. It's Derek Grier translation, but I think that was the spirit behind it. Where you been? From where have you come? You see, immediately we see God's authority. Satan is not the interrogator, but the interrogated. Satan's not asking the questions, God is, because he's the authority. Do you understand? I have to answer a judge because the judge has greater authority than me. I don't go to court questioning the judge. Just don't do it. Watch Judge Judy, try it. And Satan answered the Lord. He better had. And he gives an answer. And he said, I don't feel like I ain't got to talk to you. No, no, no. In the spirit realm, God is God. From going to and fro the earth and from walking up and down on it. The devil, even the devil, had to give an account to God. So don't you act like you won't. And the Lord said to Satan, have you, when God asks a question, it's not because, he doesn't know the answer, because he's getting at something. He said, devil, have you considered my servant? You see, God took ownership of Job. That's why you know Job's going to win in the end. But here's a little language in the Hebrew. He said, have you considered my servant Job? But really what he said was, haven't you set your heart upon my servant Job? Meaning God knew that Satan had set his heart on Job. Satan's desire is really never for his own, but those who belong to God. You see, evil always wants most what it can't have. Satan is even, whatever you tell him he can't have, that's exactly what he wants. And he knew he couldn't have that man. So haven't you set your heart upon my servant? Said there's none like him in all the earth. Again, this is pointing to Jesus, but we'll talk about that later. A blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. When God said that, he might as well have slapped the devil in his face. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for no reason? Satan is the ultimate cynic. We have to be careful about sharing his negative and critical attitude. Have you not put a hedge around him? Hedges, hedges were bushes, but they were also thorns and sometimes spikes coming out of the ground that would stab a horse if a horse came forward. And I guess in modern day vernacular, it's like, you're like a prison wall with barbed wire around this Job here. Haven't you put a hedge around him and his house? So we see here that God not only cared about the individual, but also for his family. And all that he has on every side. How did Satan know this? Because he'd been trying to get to Job for a long time. But obviously he was unable to get through. He'd come on every side, but he wasn't able to do it. And then he says, and I want you to when he said this, I know the devil snarled, because that Satan hates nothing more than this one thing, the blessing of God. He said, you have blessed. And I want you to it made his toes curl when he thinks about the blessing of God in our life. See, the most important thing in my life is not my stuff, but God's blessing. Because, if Satan, he might take my things, but if I keep the blessing, I'll get it back. But a lot of us will lose the blessing over our stuff. That's why you're in the mess you're in. Take my stuff, let me keep my blessing, and I'll get everything back double for my trouble. Said, you have blessed. He's upset about it. The work of his hands and his possessions, he's increased in the land. But God, stretch out your hand. The devil can't help but be the devil. And touch all that he has. And all of a sudden his toes uncurl and he's like, yeah, let me see if this gets by. And he will curse you to your face. Satan is the original hater. But here's the deal. He's like a lot of people. He couldn't accuse Job's deeds, so he started questioning Job's motivation. He said, Job loves you because of what you do for him, but not because of who you are. And the Lord said, get thou behind me. He said, oh, that's frightening. How dare you? No. The Lord said to Satan, whose mine is mine. You don't understand. He didn't get threatened in the least. He didn't back up. He didn't say, oh my gosh. God had absolute confidence. What's mine is mine. I belong to him, and I'm going to stay belonging to him as long as I live. He who watches over me neither slumbers nor sleep, and he's able to keep me from falling. And the Lord said, behold, all that he has is in your hand. You asked me to harm my child. I will never do such a thing. But go ahead and do you. See, we read that and feel sorry for Job. But what we don't realize is this is a win-win scenario. You see, Job, through the test, was about to deepen his faith and his understanding of God as well as his understanding of himself. But when we get to the end of the book, in the end, he receives back double everything lost. So from God's perspective, he's calm. He's like, Job, you're going to go through some things, but if you persevere, Job, if you remain steady, if you keep relying on my capacity to keep you even in the midst of trouble, son, I will give you back double. So God wasn't being mean. People read this and say, why could God be so mean? No. I keep leaning on the rabbis because they've been around a long time, and the rabbis said this only lasted for a year. I can't say that's true. Maybe some people say a year and a half. I don't know. But it only lasted so long. And here's the deal. You know, there is no crown without a cross. And faith worth having is faith worth being tested. And life wants to test and see what type of metal you really are. You know, when you go into a jeweler and they want to check the gold, I don't know if they still do that, but they would drip a little acid on it. And if the gold is good, it passes the acid test. And sometimes in God's wisdom, he lets the acid of life get on you. And sometimes to take off certain layers of dirt and heaviness in our lives. The devil intends it for evil. But God permits him to shoot a little bit of acid. And in that process, you begin to shine brighter. You begin to look better. And you know, what God was saying is, listen, redemption is not just going to be accomplished in my heart. It's not just, I'm going to show you in the workaday, living color world that I will prevail. You see, it's one thing to say in church on Sunday, God's got me, God's going to make me. But when you take that to the hospital, when you take that on your job, that's when you really prove it out. And God didn't just have theories in heaven and he was afraid of anyone ever testing it. He was not afraid. He knows what he placed in you, the seeds of righteousness. He knows what he put in you. So he's not afraid of you facing trouble every now and then. He's not afraid of the devil on this planet. Why? Because he got you. So this whole thing was not because God was weak or somehow malicious trying to hurt somebody. God saw the end from the beginning. He said, Job, you're going to be better by the time you come out of this thing. So if you have lost something, if you are somehow without, you just have to persevere. Get to the end and you will see the goodness of God in the land of the living. But you just got to persevere through to get to that place. God was not the one that hurt Job. Please understand that. Job said, reach out your hand and hurt him. He said, no. All he has is in your hand. I will not do that to my child. God is your only friend in the midst of trial. Then he said, only against him do not stretch out your hand. You see, God saw a difference between him, Job, and what Job had. You see, when you don't see a difference between yourself and your stuff, you're not going to make it through your trial. If losing your house, your car, your job, your boyfriend causes you to lose your mind, I'm here to tell you were never in your right mind in the first place. Because all you did is lose some stuff and some people. But what's the profit of man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? What matters is myself. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. See, God wasn't afraid of his people being tested. We're not fragile. We're not so weak. You see, if it's fragile and weak, it's like, hold on, don't touch them, they're going to fall apart. No. He knew what he put in us. So he just let the devil walk out from the presence of the Lord. And here is where the book of Job really gets started. And we're going to pick up this next week.
As a child of God, you have an enemy who wants nothing less than to kill, steal, and destroy the good in your life. Maybe you felt the sting of the enemy's attacks in your life, your health, or your finances. But today is your day of deliverance. Your Father has a plan of restoration for you that's coming your way right now.
God saw the end from the beginning. He said, Job, you're going to be better by the time you come out of this thing. So if you have lost something, if you are somehow without, You just have to persevere. Get to the end and you will see the goodness of God in the land of the living. But you just got to persevere through to get to that place.
In his brand new 3-disc series, The Job Experience, Bishop Grier reveals how to overcome every setback in life and bounce back into greater blessing than ever before. When the devil attempts his worst in your life, you'll be empowered to tap into God's best. First, you'll get started with the message you heard today, The Job Experience, complete and in its entirety. You've only seen a small part about how the devil is determined to undermine your faith. Now, in the full-length message, you'll discover how to combat his attacks and hold on to your blessing. Next, in On the Ground He Worshipped, Bishop Grier will show you how to turn your hour of greatest struggle into your greatest hour of worship. Praise silences the mouth of the accuser, and when you respond and worship God right in the middle of the storms of life, you can put an end to the devil's devices. And finally, in Double for Your Trouble, Bishop Grier explains how to see every circumstance and situation through the eyes of your Heavenly Father and unlock the power of restoration in your life. No matter what the devil tries to throw at you, your faith will be activated to defeat his attacks and connect you to the abundance of blessing God has for you. Call now and get your copy of this exciting and inspirational new CD series for your gift of only $35. That's almost 3 hours of life-changing teaching that will encourage you through your toughest trial and build your faith for the breakthrough to come. But that's not all. To help you release the power of praise in your life, Bishop Grier will send you the brand new CD recording featuring the Grace Worship Team, Grace Live. Transform your environment and be ushered into the presence of God with the anointed sound captured during this amazing live event. This $15 value is yours absolutely free when you call right now, just as a thank you from Bishop Grier for your faithful support of this ministry. So that's the complete 3-disc series, The Job Experience, including the full-length version of the message you heard today and the all-new CD recording, Grace Live, for your one-time gift of only $35. Your first step to stop the work of the devil and release the double blessing in your life begins when you go to your phone and call right now. Tell Bishop Grier you're ready for your turnaround. Activate God's promise of blessing in your life and get your copy of this life-changing series today. Don't delay. Call now.
Grace Church, real people, real life, real change.
Come visit us at Grace Church, where we are real people with real lives, experiencing real change.
Our motto, real people, real lives, real change, is more than just a tagline. If you're a real person experiencing real issues in life and you'd like to experience real change, Grace Church is the place for you.
The next time you're in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area, come visit us at Grace Church, 1006 Williamstown Drive in Dumfries, Virginia. Our services are on Sundays at 8:30 a.m., 10:30 a.m., and 12:30 p.m., and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m.
Come on out to Grace Church in Dumfries, Virginia, and we have a seat saved just for you.